Laura.
Hi everyone, sorry I started there in Croatian. Welcome to the second session of Google Analytics Hangouts for Google partners. Today we will be talking about content grouping. Zorin has prepared a great presentation for you with very practical tips on how to implement and how to use reports for content grouping. Just to give you a heads up, this is the second session, but we'll have two more. So the next one will be on the 9th of May, but you will receive more information about that. In case you have any questions during Hangouts, just post it on Google Plus events page, and Zorin will answer at the end of the session or afterwards. So enjoy the session, and Zorin, you can take over.
Thank you. Hi to everyone. This is the second one, probably not the last one that we do. This topic for today is, let's say, much easier than the topic we did last week. But it's also something that's basically considered as an additional customization of your analytics implementation. Today is all about content grouping and whatever you do in analytics to save your time while analyzing data. So when you do content grouping, the main, let's say, add-on to your daily work is to generate more time. So the plan for today is just to shortly explain what is content in Google Analytics, what is content grouping, and we will do some examples, some simple examples, and then the implementation itself, reporting part, and afterwards we can do Q&A. Questions, as Albina said, can be posted on the Hangouts page, so feel free to ask whatever you have. So let's begin. The overview. For Google Analytics, you have the content part, which is basically set whenever you send a specific page or a specific screen, depending on are you tracking a web page or are you tracking a mobile app. So when you load a page in your browser, you are, by default, if you have Google Analytics code implemented, you are sending, or let's say Google Analytics is storing the page and landing page dimension. Page title as well, but page titles are not, let's say, so much useful as page and landing page dimensions are. In-app tracking, content is basically introduced in reports with screens. So you have screens and screen titles or screen names to be more accurate. So this is how content is reported inside Google Analytics. This is a simple overview of behavior, all content, all pages report, where on the left side you have the page dimension and below you have rows which basically say that each value of the page dimensions has some metrics. These are also behavior metrics, basically, which say how many page views or how many unique page views or average time on page is for a specific page dimension. Page dimension by default tracks only the page path, so not the host name, not the protocol, not the hash part of the URL, but just the path. So when you look at it like this, and if you have a lot of pages, so let's say you're a big store with I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands of pages, sometimes it can be really stressful to filter the pages each day, each way, or if you do ad hoc analysis and then you just need something like, okay, give me all of the pages that are related to, let's say, YouTube, or only product pages, or only pages on English and similar. This is where content grouping, let's say, this is why content grouping was done in the first place. So when you do content grouping, you actually start thinking about your content in terms of categories which each of the content pieces is published in. So let's say a content can be set by language, or content categories can be set by language. This is just a basic example. If you have a multi-language site which does multiple markets, and each of the site, let's say, parts is for a specific target market. So for, let's say, for UK, you have the English language site. For the Croatian market, you have the other one. And basically, you can fine-grain all of your content by language. this also applies to many other attributes of the content, which are basically either a service category. So if you're working in travel, you can do by destination, you can do by country, or similar. You can do by page type, which is extremely useful when you are doing dynamic remarketing. So you can reuse all of the values that you provide in Google AdWords dynamic remarketing and then push all of those values into Google Analytics. So you can basically say, I want to see all of the, let's say, performance of pages which are of type offer detail, which in terms of, let's say, site, and which in terms of Google Analytics and Google AdWords means that you are actually looking at a product detail page. Then if you are, let's say, content heavy, if you have a blog or similar like that, then you can also push informations which basically set the value for author, for year published, for, I don't know, content length, and much, much, much more. It all depends on how your site is built, what are, or better say, who is the site built for, and what additional attributes of content you want to have available in your reports. Now, you may consider doing all of these things with custom dimensions, but I would advise you not to do it because custom dimension slots are limited to 20. So use this feature because content grouping is just for content, and use custom dimensions for something completely different. When analyzing or when doing any kind of work with content performance issues, or let's say determining the top 10 performers or the bottom 10 performance, it is good to compare everything inside a specific group of content. Now, the main difficulty when doing such an analysis is basically that if a site has a very lousy URL structure, that it's extremely hard to find what are the common identifiers for each of the, let's say, page types or similar. So if you are lucky, the structure is going to be good. If you are not that lucky, then you're probably going to have to revert to content grouping. But in any case, always compare, like my dear colleague Daurin said on the last conference that we have, apples and apples and origins and oranges. So do not mix these things because you will have, I don't know, some conclusions which are really not that good because they are not from a good, let's say, analysis standpoint. And again, when using content grouping, you will definitely save time. And this is one of the key points why do content grouping. So let's talk about more of the feature, but let's look at it from an example. Now, we have the same print screen, which we had on the previous example, where we have, I don't know, a few URLs or pages with the related metrics. Now, if we want to do something like filter all, let's say, pages which are related to, I don't know, a brand, a specific brand, then we would probably use a filter on the right side of the table. Now, if we do it by content grouping, then you see in the upper part, when you there's a small tab that says content grouping brands content group, which actually in this case means that all of the content is listed by brand. So each of the pages which were sent, which has that information, is basically saturated with a brand value. So you have all of the pages which are related to YouTube, to Android, to Chrome, to Google Maps, Nest, and all, let's say, other Google products on that particular site. You may also notice that the first row is not set. So basically, all of the pages, or all of the content pieces on your site which do not have these brands value assigned will be shown as not set. When you do analysis, it's pretty much easy to just filter out all of the brands with the not set value. So you have a clean view of what are the pages for each of the brand group. Now, when you click on each of these links in the left part of the table, so you can click on YouTube, you can click on Android, you will get a report, pages report, which is, let's say, filtered to only show pages which have content group, and for in this case only YouTube value. So the report will look like this. So it's only pages that have the YouTube inside. It doesn't have to be only if the page contains YouTube. It can be done in a different way. So in some cases, you cannot rely only on page dimension or on page title. You can explicitly assign a page to a content group with a value of, like in this case, YouTube, with tracking code. So this is one of the let's say, additional features that content group has while implementing the feature itself. So when using content grouping, you will see either a value or you will see a not set. If you see a not set, that doesn't have to be immediately considered as an error, but just a case that this particular page or set of pages do not have that value for a specific content group assigned. And if you look for a technical definition of what these, let's say, content groups are, these are really just simple dimensions where you widen information about the page. So all of the content grouping information is sent with a page view. You cannot send it with an event, you cannot send it with a transaction, you cannot send it with a social interaction. You definitely have to send it only with the page view. And the definition on the site is something like this. Google Analytics content grouping is a Google Analytics feature which lets you group content into logical structures. So here is a short example of, let's say, your site has, I don't know, multiple languages, and you want each of the languages to have, or to, let's say, give you an overview of all of the pages which come into English, Croatian, German, or a French content set. This also applies for applications, of course, mobile applications. When you do implementation, this is pretty similar to custom dimensions, but with a twist in a way. So we have just, let's say, you have three ways of implementing content grouping, but there are similarities to all of these three. The initial step where you actually set the content grouping is all done inside Google Analytics admin. So this is not something that you are doing all in code, but also as custom dimensions, you initially have to set it up on inside Google Analytics administration. Now, the difference between custom dimensions and content grouping is that content grouping is set on a view level, while custom dimensions are set on the property level. This is also the case where you have to be a bit more careful and, let's say, do a lot of thinking before implementing, because there are only 5 content groups allowed per view. So in theory, you can have a much more content groups available if you create new views inside the property, but it's going to be a nightmare to do any kind of reporting or analysis if you, I don't know, work on a daily basis in 5 or 10 views at a time. And start collecting this data as soon as you possible, because when you start tracking, the data will be available from that point on. So nothing that you do inside Google Analytics will have any kind of effect on past or historic data. And yeah, there are 3 ways to implement it, and we will do it one by one. This is just a content groups example, and this is just something that you can see how actually you can think about planning all of the things that you are doing with this feature. So this is an example of having 3 content groupings available, and each of the content grouping has basically a content group. So content grouping is the top row. So you have language, you have page type, and destination. And the content groups itself are the bottom rows, which actually say, okay, I have a content grouping of language, and one of my content groups is English, or French, or German, or similar. This also applies to page type and applies to destination. So this is how you actually think about the feature itself. The next slide explains, or let's say says, which of those are these through three methods. Probably the most reliable one is the first one, where you explicitly say to which of the content groupings and content groups does a specific content piece apply to. And the other ones are, let's say, usable only in specific cases where your URL structure or page titles are really good. So you have a very clean and understandable structure where you can either extract or, let's say, use rules to determine to which content group does each page or page dimension apply to. So when you do all of the work with content grouping, just go to View, choose Content Grouping section, and click on the New Content Grouping option. So this is a very, very, very simple procedure when you create each of your content groupings inside of View. This is just a print screen where you actually define, let's better say start. As I said, you have a small info text below the content grouping list where it will say to you how many content groups are still available for that view, and you will have a list of all the pre-created content groups if you already have them inside Google Analytics admin. This is the first of the methods, and this is by using tracking code. So the only thing you need to do is to enable. This is a small checkbox on the beginning. You give it a name. You enable the tracking code method, collection method. You select the index because you have index from 1 to 5, and it depends, I don't know, if you have any specific requirements, then you can just say, okay, I wanted this content grouping to be set on 5 or something like that. This can come in really handy if you want to have your reporting done as you actually want it to look like. So you have some kind of flexibility inside. Once you have done all of the work inside, just click on Done and save all of the settings. Now, when you enable it, it doesn't automatically track it. You actually need to add this code, which is also provided on the bottom part. Content grouping is available for Classic Analytics and for Universal Analytics. So it's not like custom dimensions, which are only available for Universal. You can use content grouping for Classic Analytics as well. But Classic Analytics is going to be deprecated soon, so don't, even if you have Classic Analytics implemented, just migrate to Universal and do everything with Universal. With Google Tag Manager, it's even easier, but we'll get that. We'll do that probably in autumn this year or something like that. Okay, so this is the full tracking code. So this is not only for content grouping, this is a full tracking code. The first 4 lines are just to load the Analytics.js library and something like that. But the point is that this is always present on your site when you are using Analytics. Then you create the object, and the bolded line is where you actually set the content group value. So in this case, we set the content group 1 to English language. And then we send the page view. If you, by any chance, set the content group after you send the page view, then this page view will not be saturated with that value. So you will basically miss the information inside the reports. So it definitely has to be defined between the create command and the send command. So just put it between these 2 lines. This is an example where more than one content groups is set, so you can do that. You can easily set all 5 of the content groups with one page view, so it's not that you have to do it one by one. And the method is pretty simple. You just need to mine the index number where you have the mid phrase where it says content group 1, content group 2, content group 3, and so on. So you reference each of the content groups by its index. So it's either 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. And don't forget to send the page view as well. The next implementation method is if you want to extract. So when we say we want to extract something, we usually think of it when we want to extract a specific part of the URL, or better say page path. So in this case, we want to extract the EN part from the following URL. So you can see in bold which of the parts we want to extract from that phrase. The second example says, in a more complicated, let's say, example, that we want to extract Porridge as a destination from a more complex URL. When using extraction method, mind the directory structure and depth, because if let's say these variations like we see here are not in, let's say, the directory depth, I don't know, second level, third level, or fourth level, or are changing in a way, then we will probably have some unexpected results. So in that case, if you don't have a reliable URL structure, then it's probably better to use it to set content grouping using tracking code and not extraction. If you want, so this is a small example of how to do it. On the right side of the screen, you can do that. We have, you can see that we have named the content grouping like site language. We didn't enable tracking code, but we enabled group using extraction. And inside, we just enter the regular expression, which says inside page path, extract the expression which finds itself between the slashes, basically. So any of the characters that find themselves after the initial slash in page path will be recorded. So in this case, the EN value will be recorded. The second example is for Porridge in this case, and we want to extract all of the destinations which are immediately after the destinations folder. So we basically filter the extraction expression after the destinations folder and just use the Porridge value which finds itself between the slashes and immediately after destinations folder. So that's basically it. It's really just a simple procedure which helps you catch these values and extract from an existing dimension. In this case, it's either page, it's page title, or screen in case you are using mobile apps. Yes, and you can use some other, let's say, methods if you have a more, let's say, more complex case. In this case, I want to extract values for a specific destination, but for multiple places. So in this case, I have two URLs, but both of these URLs are related to Porridge as destination. But inside the URL, I am having a different string, basically. So I need to create two extractions in order to get all of these values inside Google Analytics. So on the right side, inside the image, you can see that the destinations is, as we said it in the previous example, so that's the second one. And the first one is if we want to extract the value from specific hotel pages. So in this case, this is en/hotel/hotel dash porridge dash xyz, something in terms of this. Again, this is only applicable if you have a really decent URL structure. If not, revert to tracking. Rules. So rules are basically what you defined, and it's really similar to when you defined default channel groupings or custom channel groupings or stuff like that. Even segments apply to this because these match cases where you set up a rule are the same, basically the same. So based on the URL, in this case, which contains the hotels string, place it in a page type content grouping in group value category. So rules by themselves are much more difficult to, let's say, do, and these are used only for a really broad content grouping structure. So not for a really detailed thing on a really large site, because it can be extremely difficult to define all of these rules and for specific content groups. But this is something that's applicable for the case that is shown just below the text in this small table. So we have 3 separate rules where we said, say, if page path contains, let's say, /hotels, then put all of these pages inside product content grouping, or content grouping page type, but inside content group product. This applies also to category and to booking. Now, this is extremely helpful if you do, I don't know, some remarketing efforts, but plain remarketing, not dynamic remarketing. And this is also really good if you want to segment your, let's say, landing pages and stuff like that, so you can see, let's say, which of the pages are best in attracting traffic. So you can say, you can add more categories here. Of course, you can do homepage, you can do search pages, you can do, I don't know, special promotions or similar page types. It all depends on how you want all of these pages inside reports. So when you do content group rule-based definitions, you do it similar to extraction. So you can have multiple definitions inside one content grouping. So for each content groups, you are basically creating a specific rule. So for booking, we said, okay, page path contains booking. For product, we said includes hotels. And for category, we can create seemingly complex rules. So it's not only page contains something, you can add more conditions to the rule itself, to a single rule. So you can do an and or an or. And you can do a lot of things if you have a more complex site architecture in your case. Additional options. You can combine all of the 3 methods for a single content grouping set. So the logic of when you are doing things like this is, if tracking code exists, then the content group is going to be defined by this tracking code. If the tracking code information does not exist, the second priority is extraction method. And if extraction doesn't match anything, so we have set, let's say, a very, let's say, closed extraction rule, and if we do not find a match inside the extraction, then we will have an additional option to get analytics to set the content group for, let's say, that particular page if we can create a rule method. So it's not only that you can use one of these methods, you can always combine all of these methods. And this, let's say, is useful, but in my case, when I did it, I mostly relied on tracking code, because you can definitely then explicitly say which content goes to which content group. It's much more safer option for the reasons of, I don't know, because when you send information to Google Analytics, you cannot alter it in any way afterwards. So if I want to be safe, then I want to test it with the tracking code. Good practice also is that when you apply content grouping to, let's say, your production view, so this is the view where you do all your reportings, and this is the main view where all the people that work in your organization see the results and everything else. Don't do it there immediately. Create a new view, which you will probably call a test view. Create all of the content grouping there. Once you are satisfied with the results, just migrate all of the settings to the production view. So do not, let's say, push data to a production view. Because you never know that when you do, I don't know, any kind of comparison in the future, that you are not going to have some problem where you forget that some of the data that you already collected is not that accurate. Now we go to the reporting part, which is let's say, the best part of all of this. The implementation part can be really time-consuming when you do the first batch of content grouping, because there will probably be a lot of back and forths. Okay, you define a content grouping, and then you get to a point where you have to wait for errors. And these are definitely going to happen because I have not seen any actual site where you can be pretty much, let's say, 100% sure that everything is going to check out with any kind of collection method that you basically set or use for content grouping. So it's all a big waiting game. So it all comes down to when you are satisfied, or let's say 80 or 90% satisfied with the result which you get from your testing. With the reports, you can use content reporting as primary dimension. So this is something that in standard reports, this is something different from custom dimensions, which can only be used as primary dimensions in custom reports. And API calls, if you have them, it can be used as a dimension in flat tables, in drill down reports inside custom reports. It can also be used in dashboard widgets, table filters, segments, and for remarketing purposes. But it's let's say it's an all-around dimension, so you can use it in multiple places. But the main thing here is that you will use it always when you do content performance analysis, and that's where it actually helps. There's one more thing to mention here. Aside from, let's say, what you are usually used to in behavior reports, when you have all pages and everything related to all pages, you have page views and unique page views. Inside content grouping, so when you choose a primary dimension, which is a content group, either index 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you will get a new metric. This metric is called unique views. It behaves, it's really similar to unique page views. So it basically counts if a page has shown inside a session with a given value. So when you look at custom reports, standard reports, and if you see that the page doesn't have any unique view, so unique view 0, this is going to happen for a content group value, which is not set. So only in these cases you will see a 0 inside. So don't be scared, everything is working as it should. But just because you do not have the value for this content group, that immediately means that the unique views metric is going to default to 0. So everything works, it just doesn't works for not set values. When you do any kind of standard reporting, content grouping is available inside these small tabs, which are found just above the main table. So just above the scorecards in content reports. So you just click on content grouping, you have a small drop down, and in this case you have already predefined 5 content groups. You have product category, site language, product destination, product name, site content type. In this case, these are predefined content groups which are used for a travel site. And this can really be customized to any of your needs. So if you do retail or something like that, there is a really nice example on Google Docs, Google Help Docs, where you can find for a retail store or I don't know, any kind of fashion store, where you have the first one, which is basically a content group that does either men's or women's clothes. Then you have product categories. Then you have, I don't know, you can do product by margin. So it either can be low margin, high margin, mid margin, or something like that. So you can see how each of your products, but content is behaving in acquisition and in behavior metrics based on the margin that you get for each of the sales. So you can be really, really imaginative when defining those content groups. So when you select any of the content groups, in this case, this is site language, you will have these values. You will have almost all of the values that you have with, let's say, basic page views. But these are either going to be averages for the entire group, just as in case for, in this particular case, for average time on page. If you choose content groups inside landing page reports, these metrics will, of course, change. So you're not going to have page views, you will have sessions. You will not have average time on page, you will have average session duration. So it's basically, you are just changing the levels of reporting or scopes of reporting. You are just either having a hit scope or you're using the session scope. So just be mindful of that. If you are even if you are doing custom reports or segments, just be careful if you are doing content groups for pages or content groups for landing pages. There is a very distinct difference between the two. They are defined the same way, they are given values by the same way, but the scope of these dimensions is different. So take care of that. So following our two examples, on the left side you have the dashboard widget where you, in this case, report on landing page and some, I don't know, basic metrics. You can change those, of course. So you have for each of the top 10 landing pages which you are going to show in a dashboard widget, you have the number of sessions and then you have the assigned revenue for each of those landing pages. But on the bottom of that example, you have only show site language. This is a landing content group, which in this case says only show landing pages which exactly match the English landing pages content group. So in the top 10 table, by sessions, you will have only the landing pages which are relevant to English language. So this is something that you can, I don't know, customize to give me all of the top landing pages for, I don't know, for women, for men, for shirts, for trousers, for whatever you have already predefined inside content groups or content grouping. On the right side, this is just an example when you do a custom report. So you can either do an explorer or a flat table. What you will have inside the behavior group of dimensions, you will have all of those dimensions listed and named as they are shown in Google Analytics admin. So you can type in, if you know the name of your content group, you can just type in, I don't know, site language or product category or something similar like that. So it's going to be much, much easier to find your needed content group dimension inside the report. And last but not least, so this is an example, and this is where these, let's say, content groups can also shine. So this is an example of a sequence segment where you say, I want to have a sequence which basically says the following. So include all of the users which first initial sequence was that they visited or basically say they entered the site with a landing page which is in the site content type category. So this is, let's say, if you are visiting travel site, a user visited, let's say, a destination site like Poreču, like Pula, like Dubrovnik or similar. This interaction is followed by, not immediately followed by, but followed by a hit. So it's not an additional visit. It can be an additional visit, but it doesn't really have to be. That I visited the product detail page, any detail page, because we do not want to define a specific destination. We just want to see how many people actually behave as we think they do. So in terms of like a funnel, I want to have all of the stats for users which initially come from a category page, then come to a product detail page, and then go to conversion intent, which is in AdWords remarketing, dynamic remarketing lingo. This means that I enter the booking process or enter the checkout process or whatever you want to call it. So all of these dimensions are extremely flexible. You can use them in almost any report which is content based, but you can really use a lot of things which actually make much more sense if you use it with segments and with remarketing. So this combination is definitely useful. So when you do ad hoc analysis, use your content reports. When you find something significant or a pattern of behavior, let's say people are visiting this part of the site, then this one, then skip to a completely different one, and create sequences or create segments, and then import those into remarketing audiences, and then push it to AdWords. So this is something basically that can also be really easily done once you have the data available. So this is all from me today. You have both these links available. The first webinar is available on link. I think Albina already shared that. And this webinar is also going to be available shortly. For all of the questions and basically for any upcoming sessions, you will be informed either by Google Plus, or there will be an email sent to all of the attendees from this webinar, I believe. So this is all from me now. I have to wait because someone from Google said I have to. So this is the end of this webinar, and thank you for your attention. I don't see, I'm not really sure if there are any questions, but if there are, I'll answer them shortly. No, there are no questions at this time. If you have some, just post them on the Google Plus group, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye-bye.